It's aliens and they're living in your town. Damn. They have arrived. What? They're all around. So many aliens living in your town.
Hello, my fellow weirdos. How is everybody doing out there in Weirdo Land?
Doing well.
Hanging.
So I do want to, talk a little bit about what's going on with your life, Mr. Beckett. I know you had a loss going on. It's very relatable. Something we all dread. Tell us what's gone down.
I lost my little baby girl, my dog Noel. I have two dogs. Got them at the same time. They were 13 years old, so they had a nice life. And she was definitely in her twilight years, but she had kidney failure that kind of blindsided me. So it was one of those things where you kind of prepare yourself mentally. Your dog's older. I've had loss in my life. My grandparents, who I was really close with, but I haven't had loss in my life where something was intertwined in every day decisions.
Yeah, when you have a love for a pet, it's such a different type of loss. It really is such a special bond. I know when I lost, I had a dog named Charlie, and he died in my arms, and that's rough, man. I totally feel for your brother.
Thanks, man. Did you put the dog down or just?
No, he got hit by a car.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
Ooh,
not to start off the podcast on a high note. I'm so sorry, but I did want to acknowledge that. I know you're going through that, and sometimes if something's on your mind, people ask, "Oh, what's on Beckett's mind or what's on Vicky's mind?"
Yeah.
And I like people to get to know the personal stuff about you.
I appreciate it, and I actually, as weird as it sounds, I actually like to feel. I get busy with my startup company and school and work, and before I know it, sometimes a year passes. And, sometimes even though it's sad, I try not to, I was in front of my vet and he called me from work early. I was like, oh, I'll just pick up Noel later because I was getting some checkup. I knew she wasn't eating over the weekend. And he's like, no, I'm going to wait for you. So I was in tears on my way to the vet because I basically knew what the conversation was going to be.
Damn.
And so for me, being so busy with everything and having that conversation, and my vet is the most amazing guy, Dr. J. Going to give him a shout out, Animal Hospital at the Marketplace in Wellington.
And he's a good basketball player too, right?
That's right. He is amazing, and he's Austrian, very matter of fact, very thorough, whatever. And he sat down with me at 6:30. I was like, listen, doctor, thank you so much for waiting for me. He goes, Ryan, I'm not a banker. And he knew, and I can't imagine vets that have to do this all the time in terms of telling people that's basically a family member. And he was amazing about it. And he started out, I basically knew where the conversation was going, but he was explaining everything that was going. And he's like, do you want to say goodbye? I was like, that was a tough decision.
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's part of the closure. I think today in society we try to medicate ourselves, numb ourselves. I was like, yeah, it's harder. It'd be easier in the short term for me just to walk out and not say goodbye and just be like,
say let it bleed, baby. Just feel, that's what the podcast's about. Just go ahead and get them feelings out. Now, Vicky, I want to go to you about this. People always ask about animals and the afterlife, and can a spirit of a dog visit a Beckett? Do they roam the earth? Do you have any experience with that?
I often will go on investigations and I will feel something. If I feel something, usually that's around my legs. I've felt cats, I've felt dogs, all kinds of things like that. Absolutely, they hang around. And animals grieve for us too. My mom's cat literally was in mourning for 6 or 7 months, and then she finally snapped out of it and then attached herself emotionally to my daughter.
Yeah, those stories where the owner dies and the dog waits for the owner. Oh, those are such
heartbreaking.
They really are. No, but we really do. I always get probably 3 or 4 emails about people talking about their pets and the afterlife and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a very relatable thing. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, Charlie.
In a weird way, it made me more spiritual just since Monday because I lost her on Monday, and when you have that kind of loss, it's almost inconceivable that that's it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but It's almost inconceivable because I could lose, God forbid, a parent, grandparents, people really close to me. But when you have something that's so involved in your life,
It's every part of your day.
yeah, it's like, you know, Denny's talks about energy and wavelengths and everything like that and vibrations. Like when you come home, and even before my dog had passed away, when my dog was at my mom's house and I came home, the energy in my space was totally different.
To Beckett's dog. Here,
Yeah.
here. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Okay,
cheers.
let's get this party going.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be more of a, you know, a positive memorial.
I appreciate
But
it.
Get it out too.
Yeah.
You know, I try to, you know, and I've lost close friends, unfortunately, but I try to celebrate life. And when you're grieving, it's hard to celebrate life. Sometimes I'm like, I could never get a dog again.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have one that I got at the same time that I got the one that just passed. But, you know, you really try to look, whether you have a friend that passed away, a loved one, and it's, you know, to celebrate life. It's something I put on a post on my social media, something you grapple with in terms of celebrating life. But I much rather had those 13 years than to be excuse my language, a pussy about it and not avoid the hurt, you know, because the 13 years of positive I had, totally worth it. As bad as the last 3 days it sucked.
For sure, man. Death is just the ultimate mortality check. It just reminds you
Yeah.
when it comes upon you. Yeah. it's
Oh
pretty-
yeah, no, we're all going to face the Grim Reaper someday, but let's be positive now. Let's turn around. Let's turn around with some Denny's random facts. I think.
Oh, yeah?
I think it's time to Vicky, as always, you're going to be grading Denny's, and I want you to grade him harshly, please.
I've been pretty hard on him lately.
Okay, Denny's has said that he swears these are his best facts of the year thus
Okay.
far. Better than Bicycle Face.
All right. Well, I was going to tell you guys about a person named Andy George. Have you guys heard of this guy?
No.
Well, Andy George is just a regular person who spent $1,500 in 6 months making one single sandwich. And you're like, how? He made the entire sandwich from scratch. Every single ingredient in the sandwich he raised himself in order to understand where food comes from and how a single sandwich, how much it really cost. He did absolutely everything from making his own cheese, harvesting his own wheat. He made his own salt and oil. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Vicky rolled her eyes twice.
Well, not rolled my eyes, but I kind of went, ooh, what kind of sandwich was it?
It was just a regular sandwich. I'll pull it up here. But anyway,
I know,
so
but sandwich usually has meat. That's what I want to know, what animal he raised and killed for the sandwich.
So he documented the entire thing, and it's up on YouTube as one video of him making every ingredient and learning how to do all of them. So you can watch the video on YouTube. Just look up Andy George and the $1,500 sandwich.
All right, Vicky, give that a grade. What is that?
See.
Kind of lost the room.
C. How's that a C?
Beckett's typing. Vicky's rolling her eyes.
Researching.
Our producer Angelica is giving you the middle finger.
Get out of here. All right.
Did you just
whatever.
say F you, Denny's?
Get outta
Oh
here.
my God. 0 for 1, Denny's. All right, here we go.
Well, so we talked about Bicycle Face and how laws and doctor recommendations are given out based on
That boy, go back to the hits.
whoever's paying the
hits.
money. Well, so that was that was 100 years ago that type of thing was going on. More than that, a little over 100 years ago. This isn't even that long ago. In 2012, a scientific study predicted a 39-inch rise in sea level along North Carolina's coast over the next century. In response, North Carolina lawmakers passed a law banning the use of scientific predictions of sea level rising when considered for new developments along the coast. That's only in 2012. They got scientific evidence saying that the sea level is going to rise in North Carolina, and that's going to go underwater. But they want to build on it, so they passed a law that said, you know what, we can't use any of this scientific facts.
So when does it go underwater?
Within the century.
Within the century.
Within 100 years, which if we think about how much stuff happens in 100 years. If you look back at like 1919.
Well, could you imagine technology?
2 World Wars.
Technology.
Yeah,
in
a lot happened.
100 years from now, what kind of shit's going to be going on?
Well, so when the microchip was invented, and then we had the Silicon Valley booming and all that, you noticed that technology started making gigantic leaps. I mean, it was like beepers, cell phones,
Becomes
smartphones.
exponential.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was crazy. So
Say on the count of 3, say I if you think the technology boom stems from alien life force? 1, 2, 3. Really?
You're saying from what, reverse technology?
One person? Are you shitting me?
You're saying reverse technology?
Hold on. I said the technology we got today. It did come from alien species.
Yeah, it's hard to say because
All
all
right,
of
Denny.
the stuff in the microchip is on the periodic table, not even like in the man-made area. It's in just the regular elements.
I'm just saying. I think a majority of our technology came from alien life force.
I think there's a possibility that some advanced technologies could be based or reverse engineered from some sort of craft.
I'm not saying that it does. I'm saying there's a good chance it could. You don't think the technology boom, just the boom from 1900 to 1940 alone is odd? All these things in space, all these things flying around, they weren't flying around, all these reports.
It all comes from the microchip. It literally all stems from when we started making microchips. That's when our technology started booming.
Broken-hearted Beckett.
Because
your
otherwise
response.
it took an entire room of computers to run simple tasks.
Your response.
And, it's like folding a piece of paper. It's like 1-fold, 2-fold, 3-fold, 4-fold.
It gets harder.
What happens is when you invent the pulley and you invent the wheel, it creates a platform for greater inventions. When the internet was invented, it created a space for more inventions. So everything, the velocity of everything is accelerating. I don't know that I believe necessarily there could be, we've had this conversation before. I really believe that there's other life, intelligent life. There's a chance we could be the most intelligent life.
Vicky, your response to Beckett's ridiculous statement.
I don't think we're the most intelligent life, but I also don't think that aliens are responsible for our technology.
Really?
Most reports that you hear about any alien encounters, they're just probing us. They're not giving us stuff. So
you don't think any of our aircraft came from alien life force? You don't think that's...
we might have gotten the idea from reports of, somebody who spotted their alien crafts, possibly, but I don't think they gave us the technology.
There's certain military people that will kind of go on record and say, we reverse engineered ships that we found from, other areas. Call me crazy.
Yeah, but technically they didn't give it to us. We stole it then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, now
Commandeered it from
now
there.
we're in a debate of semantics, Vicky.
But you could argue that humans are intelligent. Our flaw fundamentally is in the fact that we have such sensitive emotions.
Oh, we are so sensitive.
Ego.
Yeah, ego really is the downfall of a lot.
Gosh, we are such
Pretty much
sensitive
everything.
bitches, aren't we?
The minute it's not about you or something, it really you're like, oh, MF,
And no, it's really crazy that you just nailed it. The stuff that's gone wrong through the history of humanity because of just the ego or hurt feelings or being offended. I mean, it's insane.
Well, think about every story plot. It's man versus nature, man versus self. It's all man or person versus nature, person versus
2019.
person versus. It's all person versus society. They're all a person's story. We don't care about birds and snakes living out in the woods. Nobody cares about that. We want stuff where there's drama. If we watch that stuff, it's got to be a snake catching like a fox in the air.
I don't know. I kind of like watching snakes kind of do their thing. Just kind of slithering.
I think that it's interesting. I think that if you look at geopolitics and what's going on in the world, there is plenty to complain about, as we have in terms of social media in the world and millennials. But I think that there's some awareness, some compassion, some empathy that millennials bring to politics that will be a bulge in the garden hose. Like Donald Trump, love him or hate him, he's in his 70s. Like he's old school thinking, right? And he's the most powerful person in the world. Love it or hate it right now. Beto O'Rourke, other people that are in the space, they care about global warming. They care about animals and stuff like that. It's a totally different mindset, someone in their early 40s, like a Beto O'Rourke in Texas, as opposed to some guy in his 70s. It's a totally different mindset. I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast, but I listened to an NPR thing. Right now, we don't talk about this on the news, we are in a golden age of paleontology. A new dinosaur species is discovered every 10 years, or 10 days, excuse me. Every 10 days, a new dinosaur species is discovered. That's because of Jurassic Park.
Because of people's interest in
Jurassic
dinosaurs?
Park, this guy that's a badass paleontologist, he's in his late 30s, early 40s. He was taken to the movies by his grandparents. He said he was standing on his chair during Jurassic Park 1. And he knew his life was forever changed. And he got into paleontology because of that. And now we're in a golden age of dinosaurs.
Are you trying to upstage
yeah, he's trying to take
Denny's
his-
and Denny's random facts?
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow, this is kind of like a weird whatever battle rap here.
I have another one. I have another one. Can I have one more
Well,
fact?
hold on. No. Let's keep this fair. Denny's, fight back. No, let's fight. Now that we are in a random facts fight, go.
Well, I like how Beckett leaves all mysteriously one day, and then he comes back with facts and
Yeah,
stuff.
what
like,
what did happen to you?
what
Yeah.
happened in the time?
Thank you, Denny's, for
What-
keeping me on point.
out
What
of
the hell
nowhere.
happened to you last week?
I got to talk to Vicky offline about it because there's just some strange stuff happening at my house.
Offline? Are we online right now? Are you? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no.
Technically, we are.
No, but seriously, what happened to you? Why did you leave weirdly? I know we tried to talk a little bit, but I haven't. We haven't connected.
Well, you know me. I'm the skeptic on the show, right? There's been some weird stuff going on at my house, and I had to leave. I think I'll just leave it at that. I got to talk to Vicky about some more stuff before I go public. with
Okay, cryptic.
I mean, it's.
Dick
I even
face.
have more questions now.
stuff. I'll keep the audience posted.
It's because we made him watch Halloween. That's why it opened up the gates.
The new Halloween, though, the one that just came out.
All right, all right, Denny's, you're
Hey, you
next.
guys are talking about the freaking deviltry and
Oh,
Halloween.
I mean, go ahead with your random facts. Our interview tonight, though, is absolutely. This is such an insane story, but I'm just teasing it. There is something crazy here in Palm Beach County, Lake Worth Woods, that I've never. I guess I've known about it before because we've interviewed him, but we were really drunk. So I'm actually going to interview him again tonight, and we're going to get these facts fresh. Denny's, go on.
Here, Vicky, you want to say anything cool too while I'm like rattling off facts? Here?
Right.
We got bird teasing shit for
Nah.
later.
This podcast is messy.
Beckett's
man.
like hinting at facts that he's gotten.
Nah, Denny's, you own this. I'm not butting in.
This is a messy podcast. It is. I apologize.
Well, I'll close it out with this one because I know
No,
you guys.
no.
I know you guys like pizza.
Clean it up. Clean it up.
Clean it up. All right, I know there's a lot of controversy based around the Hawaiian pizza. What are your guys' thoughts? Who likes Hawaiian pizza here?
Hawaiian pizza is fucking bullshit.
Whoa, Beckett, F-bomb.
Sorry.
Oh my
I had a beer before I
gosh.
got here.
Okay, I don't like the pineapple. I love pineapple. By the way, good for your lungs. It kind of grosses me out when it gets cold on the pizza and you try to take it off the cheese
And it leaves an imprint.
and it sticks. Yeah, it gives like a handprint of pineapple.
I hear ya.
All right, go on, Denny's.
What do you think about it?
I actually am not a pizza fan at all.
Get out of the studio now.
I know.
Get out.
Sorry.
What? All
I
right,
don't like pizza.
We're gonna
I'm sorry.
we're gonna unleash that
Well,
back.
I know. I
Happening.
just got fired,
Oh
right?
my gosh! Yeah, there's this new cool psychic I've been hanging out with. Denny's, I want to tell you about.
All right, so try to wrap your head around this. Hawaiian pizza was invented in Canada by a Greek immigrant who was inspired by a Chinese food dish to put a South American ingredient on an Italian dish that went on to be the most popular item on a pizza in Australia.
That makes it way worse.
It's crazy.
Makes it way worse. It's not
That
even
explains
Italian.
it.
And I looked it up. Like Australia loves Hawaiian pizza. It's
What
crazy.
are your thoughts on that thought, Vicky?
That explains it. You got way too many countries coming together. That's
That's
why.
what I'm saying, but
That's
it wasn't
why.
even
Too
Hawaiian.
much going on.
Yeah, too much going on. that's
Sometimes you can do an Ocean's 13 where you have too much talent on the screen. It's kind of a mess.
Yeah, Clooney, Pacino.
Actually, the 13 wasn't too bad. The middle one was terrible. But okay, let's
Ocean's 12 was rough.
Let's move on. Okay, Beckett. Vicky's gonna be your final vote here. Can you outdo Denny's on the random facts?
I'll throw one out there.
Well, you just bragged about it. I'll get another one.
So what do you guys think is the largest desert on Earth?
The Sahara.
You would think that, wouldn't you?
Desert Moon.
Antarctica.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like it's a frozen tundra.
Right?
All right, Vicky.
Antarctica is the largest desert, and I'll add one to it before she grades me.
That's not gonna be good. I
If you
can
go
tell
there
you.
healthy, you'll also never get sick because it's too cold for bacteria and viruses to live.
That's why I keep my classroom really, really cold.
There you go.
How is school going? You have a 10-second rant about your job. Go. You don't have to do that.
There's no way I could cover it in 10 seconds.
I'm not
now.
trying to get anybody in trouble.
Yeah.
Here. I'm not.
But my random fact got Vicky's input, so that means it must be at least a B.
Well, it's because I always, when I would teach about deserts, I always would try to blow my students' minds because a lot of them, they think that it has to do with it being hot. No, it has to do with the amount of rainfall that falls someplace.
Being out in the desert by yourself freaks me out. I think more than being out in the ocean by myself. What would freak you out more? You're on a raft out in the ocean, in the middle of the
both
ocean.
suck.
All of a sudden, you're out in the ocean. Big old whale eye comes up, winks at you, or the desert. Big old spider
Definitely rather be in the desert.
scampering around.
I'd rather be in the desert.
Yeah, I'd rather be desert too.
I think I'd rather be in the water.
No,
No
you
way,
dark
'cause-
water? Do you like dark water?
I don't like bright sand.
Plus, you could die of dehydration on a boat because you can't drink the ocean water. You go mad.
All right, Danny. It's Random Facts is over.
Look at the conversation that my random fact spurred. That's got
Okay.
to be at least a B.
All right, Vicky, who wins, Denny's or Beckett? This kid's fun for Beckett.
Here, ask Beckett a Halloween question.
Denny's with the diss. If you're just tuning in and you don't get that reference, listen to last week's podcast. Vicky, do you have any scary stories you want to tell us that's going down?
I could do a quick scary
Well,
story.
you know, okay. If you do a quick scary story, and then give us a little intro on our guest tonight.
Okay. I was in an investigation out at Lake Okeechobee, and I was in the master bedroom sitting on the floor with my back against the wall, and all of a sudden there was a growl that was so loud that it actually vibrated the wall. And that's like the only investigation that I've had anything like that happen where it was just so loud.
So what is that? What is that?
I mean, I didn't come across, last week our guest Rich was saying how very rare it is to come across anything that's, possibly demonic. So I don't know what it was. I got human EVPs from that house. I didn't get any animal. And the growl was actually not on audio.
Are you offended or are you flattered if you get an EVP that says, "Damn, Vicky, you look hot"?
I love it when they say my name, period. I could care less what they say to me.
Okay.
I love it when they say my name.
So Vicky, you are very good friends with our guest tonight, and I've interviewed you before. We had some drinks on the podcast. Don't remember a lot about the podcast, but Vicky, go ahead and give him a very, very nice welcome.
Okay, well, Tim Yancey back in the day, he and I had dueling radio shows. Like at one point, mine was on first, and then his was on, and then we flip-flopped. But I had to tell you a funny story about Tim. Several years ago, I was interviewed for Boca Magazine. And after they interviewed me, they were going to interview the team that was out of Lake Worth Playhouse. So the photographer from Boca Magazine said, "Hey, you want to come along?" So I'm like, I'm going to go all incognito. I don't want this other team to know this is, Vicky, she's got a team. So we walk into the theater, and Tim, "Vicky, hey, how you doing?" And I'm trying to fly under the radar. He's calling my name out, and then I pass him in the theater. He's like, "Yeah, that's Vicky. She used to have this radio show," and blah 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 blah. So
Sorry,
everybody
I blew your
knew who
cover
I
there.
was. Yes, everybody knew who I was by the time he was done.
Well, that's very awesome. You guys, I'm glad you guys have a connection. So, tell us about your background, please. You have a fascinating story. I watched your documentary
Oh, did
today.
you? Did you?
Holy
Okay.
crud, brother!
Well, you saw a real Disney-tized version of the stuff that happened to me and my family when we were younger. When I was a kid, it started with we thought that there was somebody outside our house that was hanging around at night. We thought it was a hobo or somebody who was living in the woods, but there was this guy that was out there, and it was just a black shadow. He was always kind of back in the woods there, and we thought it was somebody that was hanging around outside the house, and that led to years of a pretty violent haunting that happened to my family. Some producers got wind of it, and we made some documentaries about it. And from that whole experience as a kid, we also reached out to other haunting survivors that were out there, like the Lutz family from Amityville. And any horror movie that's out there, we know those people personally, because there's a little quiet group of us who are kind of support for each other who has experienced that kind of thing.
When you watch that documentary, and what's the name of it if people want to check it out?
It's called A Haunting. The series was called A Haunting. It's put out through Discovery Networks, and the episode was called The Shadow Man.
I always get a kick out of the reenactments done those kind of
yeah.
things, and I've always wanted to say and talk to the real people. When you watch those reenactments, is it anything close to being like real life, or is it so over the top?
They do the best that they can with it, but some things don't always translate well in those. So you get, as a matter of fact, Discovery said, we want to hear exactly what happened. Put it out there the way that it went down. And they immediately sent it back to us and said, we can't air this on television. This is too violent. And so you got the version that you saw.
So take us back to the first experience, how it all went down, and then how it all got so terrible.
Well, my brother and I had one room in our house. One of the things that they talked about was my father being a post-traumatic stress disorder Korean War vet.
Is that true?
They mentioned that about 100 times in there, yeah. And he was, but he was also a pretty violent guy. There was a lot of family abuse, domestic abuse that was happening at the hands of my father that happened at the same time. And I think that probably, that energy that was in our house was kind of the catalyst for what came in. I think that attracted this to us. So my brother and I started noticing at night we would see a shadow walk across the curtain in our room. And we would look, and there was a man out there. I don't know another way to explain it. We were pretty isolated in the woods, and past our backyard there were pine trees and palmetto thickets, and you would see that guy standing out there.
For people listening, could you, because we have a lot of local listeners here, where exactly was this at?
Lake Worth Road and Military Trail.
I was racking my brain when I saw they keep on talking about these demonic woods and how crazy these woods are, and I'm thinking, I've lived here my entire life. I don't know about these woods.
Yeah. It's where there's a place there now called Big Lots, and that's where our house was. It was on that corner. Now you got to realize this is 40, 50 years ago, and that was nothing but woods. Between Military all the way into Green Acre City was all woods. There was one building that was the German American Club, which was a little house, and then you had our house, and it was a dirt road that came off of Lake Worth Road, and it wound back into those woods, into the pine thickets and stuff that was there. And there was our house, a lake, and woods everywhere.
Because the documentary makes it seem like the woods were evil. That's where.
Well, yeah.
I even wrote down the notes. The woods are evil.
Yeah.
Are they still there?
No.
There's nothing there out there?
There's some little spots here and there, but it's pretty much just been raked over. The lake was filled in, and there was a Shell gas station that was there for a while. It became a Wags, became something else. And so over the years, we're talking 50 years ago. I'm 57 years old now, and it started when I was about 7 years old.
Okay, you're 7. It's all going down, and then what happens next?
I was walking through those woods because we had tree forts and stuff back there, and we would play in those woods, my brother and I. And I remember coming through a field that was there. There was a pine tree, and all of a sudden it was like I had startled something, and the pine tree shook. And I saw it, and there was nothing there. I just saw the reaction of the pine tree. And I could see bark coming off of the tree. Something was sliding down this pine tree. Now, you've seen a pine tree. They're not thick, concealed bushes or anything. And it didn't make sense to me. And something hit the bottom branch, ran off the bottom branch, and landed in the field. And it scared the crap out of me. I was 7 years old. And the only way I can explain it to you, Jay, is that my eyes couldn't see what was there. It's the only way I can explain it. There was something in the tree. It had weight. It was able to, the tree was reacting to its movements. I couldn't see it.
So when you hear something like this, because we have a lot of skeptics that listen, why, or okay, in your experience, how often does this type of thing happen? Where an entity, because they made it feel, on that documentary, they made it seem like it was some type of creature or monster that was stalking you.
Well, that's what we thought it was, to be honest with you. Eventually, this thing moved inside, and a whole nother set of circumstances began. But I think it's very rare. Everything these days is a monster. Everything is a demon, that type of thing. But I think it's really rare. Trish and I, my wife, we're really lucky that we get to do a lot of counseling now with other people who are going through the same thing. And I always tell people, sometimes it's easier to say that there's a ghost in the house than to admit that you have a bad parent, or that you're cutting yourself, there's a monster under the bed, that kind of thing. We see that probably about 80 to 90% of the time.
Okay, so is there a correlation to people who do cut themselves to some kind of ghost or demonic possession?
Yeah. One of the things I told you about, this core group of haunting survivors that we've had documentaries and stuff made. Well, we get asked a lot to go to conferences and conventions, so we see a lot of each other. We started to compile the data. What happened to you? And we, how did this work out for you? What did you do to resolve it? And we have those conversations. We're beginning to find out that there's a lot of commonalities that happen with the families. You get people who are experiencing a lot of dysfunctional family interactions that are happening. You have a lot of alcohol abuse, substance abuse types of things that are happening in there. And it seems like that energy is kind of like a catalyst for this stuff, that it's like a flame to a moth. And I don't use the term demons, or demonology or any of that, because that for a family kind of paints a picture of something that's a little bit too overwhelming to deal with. If you explain to people that this is like a parasite, that there is an energy that's happening in your house that seems to attract this stuff, and it makes a coupling with that family. And then once you understand that, you begin to go through the motions of what it takes to dissolve all of that. It's a little bit, for me, it's a little bit more practical and realistic. Okay, so that's very interesting. Now you say this place is completely new now. All those woods are gone. Vicki, if you go out there, can you pick up an energy out there from that? Because the woods are gone. We've got new buildings.
Right.
Does that energy go away, or does it stick around?
I mean, more than likely, the energy is still there. But again, you have to have that catalyst. And going back to Amityville, because Tim knows a lot about that as well, you have to have somebody that is going to set that off. I've always said there's no such thing as a happily haunted home. There's usually some kind of dysfunction going on in that household, that these things, like he said, they're parasitic. They're going to jump on it. So the same person can live in the same location, and if they don't have that dysfunction going on, they're not going to experience the same thing.
So like the little girl at the three places that you've done an investigation for, that we think that it's gone on to my place, would that allude that I have a dysfunctional home, or do they always have to be a demonic, mean kind of ghost, or ghosts in general usually breed just on dysfunction?
Well, for you, to be honest, I think it had a lot to do with some of the things that you used to do in your home and your energy, and she was attracted to that. And once she became attracted, she has not dislocated herself from you. She follows you around, because we know that in the past that you have done some things that, are conducive to getting attachments to yourself.
Okay. Tim, I'd like to get your opinion on this. So that the haters will say, look, Vicki talks about condemning the Ouija board and blah, blah, blah. And, they don't believe in it. They go, we want to believe. So just use the Ouija board, prove all these terrible things happen so we can see this shit's real. What's your thoughts on the Ouija board, just to prove the naysayers wrong?
If you believe in energy and the way that Vicki and I have an understanding of it, and the way that how you choose to show up in the world, what your vibration, what your resonation is, that can attract things to you. Now, you've heard people talk about angelic beings as well. It's the same thing. It's just the other end of the spectrum. Some people just live those charmed lives and they feel like they have angels around them. Same thing. Different resonance, a different frequency, I think, that's put out there.
Do you believe in angels?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe in spirit energy. I think that it's out there. Now, in your case, and you have to understand, my family is a fan of your show. They love the KVJ show,
nice.
And they have been following you for a long time. And I think that what happens, Jason, you are a big personality. You shine bright. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
You're a big light in the world, and that can attract things to you. Most of the time, when it comes to ghost sightings, and you hear the things that happen, they're not intended to be frightening. Most ghost sightings are, some of them can actually be pretty romantic. You hear about the ghost of a missionary who walks along a castle wall or something like that. The grandmother who comes back just to say, hey, I'm okay, I'm all right, and I just wanted you to know I'm on the other side, I'm good. those are the kind 90% of the time, 80% of the time, that's what you get when you have a human haunting. And while they can be startling, they're not intended to be frightening. So I think that you do have something that has an interest in you. It's probably not violent. I think that it's just an attraction. And I'm not going to use the word attachment, but some people would. And I think it's pretty cool.
No, I agree with you. I'm not at all freaked out. Becky, our skeptic over here, Becky.
Yeah.
This is the guy that's he's going to be the one that says, I'm not sure I believe what you're saying. Becky,
Right.
any questions as our resident skeptic?
I'm the resident skeptic, but I think one of the reasons that Jay invited me on the show is I still have an open mind, right?
Sure.
And so for me, that I'm just kind of skeptic till proven not, I guess, right? And I won't deny things until it's also proven not true. I guess is kind of the way that my brain's wired.
Yeah.
So I'm open to all of it.
I'm just so fascinated about those woods you're talking about. I would
It
like
was-
to go in that area.
We'll just go shopping
I
at
didn't
Big
even-
Lots.
Yeah.
I mean, so
We'll go. We'll go one of these
Is
days.
it possible Big Lots is A, haunted, and B, have good deals going on right now?
I don't know,
Falling
man.
prices.
But that's where we were, and it came from this thing that was outside our house, if you saw the episode, and then it kind of moved into, and it took an interest in my brother for some reason. And I'd be laying in bed at night, and you would hear sound that would wake you up. And I'd look over, and Tom would get up out of bed, walk out the door, and go right out into the woods like he was sleepwalking. It was the craziest thing, and I have to get up and go deal with Dad and say, hey, Tom just walked out of the house. Now he's mad because he's not getting any sleep.
Would your dad get mad when you would wake him up? Because the documentary made it seem like they did your parents really put chairs on your door to lock you guys in so you would not roam in the woods?
They did that. He put a chair in front of it, and Tom would move the door, crawl under the chair, that kind of thing. They put hooks on our doors, on the front and the back door, little eye hooks up in the top, and he would go and he'd get the broom, tink, and pop the little hook, and out he would go. And this happened all the time.
How many years did all this haunting go on for?
Years.
Over 5?
Yeah, but you have to understand that this is a situation where when you live through a haunting like that and something's going on and something's touching you at night or throwing stuff in your bed, those kind of things are happening, especially when you have a parent who is very dominant and aggressive and abusive. You don't talk about that kind of stuff. So we would a couple of times, hey, there's a man in our room. Oh yeah, there's a man in your room, that kind of thing.
And then there'd be no man, and then get
Yeah.
to bed, you little kid.
Yeah, we'd be laying there in bed, and this thing was intelligent and had enough intelligence to get us in trouble. Knock something over in the middle of the night, crash. What the hell's going on in there? And here comes Dad, and you're going to get your butt kicked because it's not a ghost. There's a man in our room. Yeah, like how?
So the spirit or the entity would set you guys up to
Yeah.
get hit. Damn.
I remember an evening, it was Christmas Eve, and in the episode, they put a lot of events together into one scene. But my brother and I were all excited. It was Christmas Eve. We're coming out, and we're going to check and see what's under the tree, what Santa brought, that kind of thing. And I remember we came out of our room. We snuck down the little hallway. We're looking. My parents' room is right here, and now there's a crash in our bedroom. And my brother was really scared because he knew we were going to get in trouble. He was my protector. He was the one that would take the butt kickings all the time. And now there's a crash in our room, and I look back and I see a hand pointing out the door at us. There's something there. We can't get back in our room, and now Dad's up, and we're stuck. What do you do with that?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. There were a lot of very terrifying scenarios that happened with that, especially with my mom, that they couldn't air on TV.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I really want to give Tim and his wife, Trish, some credit. Years ago, I wrote a blog and I called it Aftercare. And one of the reasons I wrote it was basically a rant about paranormal teams who come in, they have their fun investigating, and then they go off with their cool EVPs and their video evidence, and they don't realize that they have left victims there that need counseling. They need someone to guide them and to help them. And Tim and Trish are those people who help.
Yeah,
who truly help others.
How would someone get a hold of you?
My email is Tim Yancey, and that's YANCEY at Comcast.net. My wife is involved heavily with our church, Unity, on the Palm Beaches. She's the associate pastor there. But she also, first and foremost, is a mother and a teacher. She works in the school board with the schools doing science classes and stuff. So she has a real practical approach to how to work and counsel with kids. I've been there and had the experience of what happens. And so together we make a pretty formidable team, and we actually travel around the country now counseling and working with kids and adults and families who are scared to sleep in their home that night.
Yeah, I mean, imagine. I mean, the one thing I get a lot of emails about that I saw in the special that I wrote a little note down because I can't believe how common it is when it comes to these spirits. Were they really putting, or the entities putting bugs in your bed?
Yeah.
I get so many emails about, oh my gosh, all these bugs are in my bed, spiders and roaches and all. We're talking not 5, we're talking 30, 40, 50 roaches, spiders.
That happened to me. It didn't happen so much to my brother. But one of the things that happens with this, we talked about that connection, the parasite connection. And then it begins to create all the conditions necessary for its own survival, to feed off of that negative energy that's happening in a house. And it kind of blurs reality. You start to suddenly, you don't talk to one another like you used to, and families start to isolate. And, you're thinking in your head, I must be crazy. Well, you got to watch your words because they're powerful in these kind of circumstances. And I'd be laying in bed and knocked out, dead asleep, and all of a sudden, whap, something would land on the bed and with us, and there were cockroaches and pine cones and bugs and stuff.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, and that's when my family, they finally figured out, well, something's going on here, because they're not going out and getting cockroaches and stuff and bringing them in. That's when the page turned a little bit, and my family started to understand something's going on.
That is so creepy.
But these kind of entities act just like an abusive person would.
Sure.
I mean, they
Power
want
and control.
to, divide and conquer, and they want to isolate you, and they want you to not communicate and get help because they're feeding off of you constantly.
Danny, you got anything you wanna add, or?
Oh, it's just crazy. I couldn't imagine going through something.
What would be worse, waking up and you've got spiders in the bed, or you've got rats in the bed? And the rats are hungry. They haven't eaten since November.
I'd take spiders. I'm not scared of
Are
spiders.
the spiders poisonous?
They're very poisonous, Beckett.
Rats.
Okay, we got spiders. We got rats.
I'll do rats.
Denny's is so afraid of spiders. I know.
There's certain
Arachnophobia. Did you like that movie?
Yeah, it was all right. I thought the ending was kind of hokey with the giant spider in the barn.
Once again, if you could just tell everybody the name of the special.
It's a series called A Haunting. I think it's airing on Discovery Networks. And it's the episode is called The Shadow Man.
creepy title. Tim Yancey,
creepy.
I hope you join us again.
Absolutely.
That was a great story. Give it up for Tim.
It was amazing.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. Anything you want to plug?
No. I just, I want to plug you guys. You guys are doing a service here. Believe it or not, there's people out there that are scared to death to sleep in their homes at night because something's going on. And to have anybody that is a supportive voice in that, even as a skeptic, I appreciate the fact that you are respectful of story. I'm old enough now, I don't care if you believe me or not. That type of thing. My interest these days is not so much blinky, flashy lights and stuff. I mean, we just had 10 years of that on television shows, and what did we prove? Nothing. So, for me, I'm a little bit more old school with it. I appreciate the spirituality of what happens. You want to investigate a house? Here's a suggestion for you. Leave the toys at home, go in, settle, clear your mind, and just radiate and see what attracts. And it's very interesting. You can have some just as amazing adventures in that. So thank you guys for what you do and the outreach that you make to people who are going through this stuff.
Great interview.
That's awesome.
Loved it, man. Good
Yes.
stuff. Good,
Thank you
good,
so much.
Good booking, Vicky.
Thank you. I was
Thank
waiting
you.
to get the credit for
Good,
this.
good booking.
Thank you, Vicky.
Put it all together.
Well, a friend of the podcast and the show.
And I hear you're trying to get into Yesteryear Village.
We are.
I can make it happen.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I got some contacts.
Okay, Vicky says you're
Guys,
the man.
thank
you very
Thank
much,
you so
brother.
much.
That was awesome.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh man, that was
That's good.
So I what I want to know is if you hear that story, you hear anything that's similar to what Tim's talking about, emails. Let us know. Email him. They'll
Yep, they do good work. That's one of the reasons why I he was the first person that popped into my head when we said, "Hey, let's get some guests on here," and it's him and his wife do a lot of good work.
I think that's what the non-believers and the skeptics need. Like we had the guy that was the UFO person in terms of like his background and his
UFO
credentials.
hotline,
What
man.
was that guy's name?
I forgot.
That guy.
was
I
amazing.
got so many positive emails about that guy.
Dude, that guy was awesome.
in the interview we
Peter.
just
Remember, it was
Peter,
Peter.
yeah.
Yes.
Peter.
in the interview we just had that we don't need the people that are the crazy loonies that have these weird backgrounds, but a gentleman like we just had and the guy that was the UFO hotline guy, someone that has credentials, is well spoken.
Yeah, we got to get
He's
somebody.
got the background. Like when you bring and you listen to someone like that and you're a skeptic or you're a non-believer and you listen to someone like that, you're like, that's interesting.
We got to get a credentialed Bigfoot guy up in here.
So yeah, we do have a guy. In fact, I was going to talk to our producer Angelica about that. We've got the main guy. His name's Sheely.
Yeah, Dave Sheely.
Dave Sheely,
Is
or
it Dave?
I think it's Dan Sheely.
I don't know. There was brothers.
So his son is now doing it. I called the dad, the
Okay.
main guy, the other day about
Okay.
a week and a half ago. I go, I left a message. He called me back right away, and he's like, "Hello." Like, yeah, do you still do Bigfoot stuff? I do a
Yeah.
podcast, blah blah blah. I was like, I don't do it anymore. My son does. Give him a call.
Okay.
I'm like, thank you so much, sir. You're welcome. Click.
Yeah, I had interviewed him on my other show. Yeah, back in the day, he was like my first or second guest that I had.
Well, what would people want to know about Bigfoot? We've done Bigfoot interviews before, and they've been kind of boring. What would be a good angle? Why would we want to talk to a Bigfoot believer, a Bigfoot,
Enthusiast?
or a Bigfoot? I can't.
Documentarian?
No, I can't think of the word. Oh my gosh.
Bigfoot pizza?
Aficionado?
Yeah, there you go. Aficionado. Expert. Damn it. How can I not think of the word expert? Yeah, a Bigfoot expert. What would you want to know?
I would just want to know what their thoughts are. Is it a species? Is it one that just lives for a long time? I mean, if it's a species, you think
I would
there'd
want
be
to
a-
know like personal sightings, any kind of evidence they've picked up.
That's what I would want to know. I'd want to know more of the encounters because, I mean, that's all good, Denny's. That's Bigfoot 101.
Yeah, but I hear encounters on like the internet, and like Beckett said, sometimes the credibility is a little lower on the Bigfoot ones.
I think we need to continue with the theme of what you guys have done an amazing job, and I'm overly impressed by everyone in terms of the credibility and the quality of the source. Like I can quote Wikipedia, or I can quote like an academic journal, like an actual legitimate source. And the weight of the source is gonna, even if it's less sensational, I'd rather have a credible source. First and foremost. So I could have some guy, I can say this because I'm from West Virginia, I can have some West Virginia guy tell me some sensational story about Bigfoot, but I rather have the PhD that has some information or some whatever that's less sensational about a Bigfoot thing.
I already got a hate comment from somebody from West Virginia. Bitch boy Beckett needs to shut it.
I think we need to do another bit where we read hate mail, because that was one of the best things ever.
I'm so over the hate. Whatever. I mean, there's so much bullshit out there. I want to be positive.
I got it.
Let's be. No, but I'm not trying to shut you down at all. It is a funny bit.
Maybe I'm a masochist.
No, no, I hear you. It just, I mean, I get it. We suck. Blah blah blah. We're not credible. Go fuck yourself. There was a creepy story. Nurses at a hospital in, oh man, of course in Italy, have released cockroaches. She released cockroaches into a ward in order to get it closed so she could try to find another job. Look at that, sabotaging herself to get another job. What's all that about?
Terrible.
So you have a spider story.
Oh yeah, tying on to some cockroaches. So I found, all right, we're talking spiders, and yeah, I'm not a gigantic fan of them, but I found this really disturbing thing about spiders. It's happening in big cities. So I saw this documentary. It was animals adapting to live in city life compared to natural life, because they adapt to natural life. But now that we have big structures and cities going on in America, they have a whole completely new ecosystem that they adapt to, and they feed differently.
This is such a good topic. There was that one show, What Happens to the Earth
After
humans
time.
die, and they show the city. It's so fascinating.
Well, so pigeons learn to eat differently. Like even the insects in big cities they treat everything differently. And one of the unpleasant side effects is this story right here, which I'll play for you.
Big cities are making spiders bigger. So, a lady by the name of Elizabeth Lowe from the University of Sydney had her curiosity spot stimulated when she noticed that golden orb weaver spiders appeared larger in big Australian cities. So she went out and gathered up 222 of these really fascinating, heebie-jeebie-inducing but harmless orb weavers, some from out in the wild and some from around city parks, and measured their size relative to their environment. The correlation she discovered was the more concrete surrounding the spider and the further away from bushland and leaf litter, the larger the spider.
So, with the glass buildings, birds are disoriented and can't catch spiders like they would out in the wilds. And the food that people leave on the floor and stuff attracts more insects around the big cities. And the spiders are getting gigantic, and now they're reproducing, and they're creating generations of larger spiders.
Pretty good, Denny's.
Pretty good stuff,
That's
right?
good
Why didn't he
stuff.
bring that for those random facts?
I don't know. I think he wanted the finale. I think
Well,
he
I mean,
wanted
that one
to.
deserves its own moment.
That's good stuff. To clean up my story, my computer went out. I'm sorry. When I was trying to read that story, it's very jumbled. Yeah, the nurses at the hospital in Italy. So it was media in southern Italian city have reported detectives suspect the insects were introduced to the the accident emergency ward. Damn, my computer keeps going out.
So she just wanted to lose. She didn't want that job.
She wanted to transfer. Yeah, she wanted to transfer, and she sabotaged it.
Like an entire operation. Somebody that built that from the ground up just lost it.
People are insane, man. People are staging all kinds of shit to get their career going.
Well, it's funny now because we have services like Yelp on the internet, but now everybody says, "Oh, I never use Yelp," because they know that people lie on Yelp. But so now we have alternative sources that people check out because they know it's more reliable than Yelp. But then why are we allowing it to happen if we all know that the problem is that people are just going on there, like an ex-girlfriend's like, this restaurant sucks.
It's all emotion based, is what you're telling me.
It's all based on emotion, and it's based on personal preference.
I know somebody that they were dating a person that owned a restaurant, and they broke up. And this person, and it wasn't even like a bad breakup. They just broke up to the point where no one cheated. They just kind of went their own way. And the one person was so mad and jaded and pissed that they had about 30 of their friends go on Yelp and just trash it. But they did it for months and months and months. So when you'd go to that Yelp page, you would just have nothing but pages but terrible reviews, and nobody would go to the restaurant. And they said they really felt and saw a difference.
They feel the consequence.
And decline in business.
Yeah, I mean, you're ruining their like livelihood. Gosh.
I was Googling the other day an attorney, and there's only like 2 reviews, and both of them were like, "Don't use this attorney; she'll sleep with your husband."
Oh wow.
So okay, when you read that,
What's her name?
when you read that, do you hit pause and say, "I don't want to"? Do you believe the Yelp review?
I laughed.
Okay, so you wouldn't hold that
Yeah.
credible.
Well, there were no other reviews on there, so to me, that's like, okay,
Clearly.
yeah, you're not this big, high-powered attorney because there's no other reviews except for the fact that you slept with people's husband.
But what if you had 5 reviews of, oh yeah, he definitely sleeps with blah, blah, or she sleeps with other people's husband? 5 different sources on there. Do you start to think, okay?
I would start to think, but I would also, being a skeptic with certain things, I'd say, oh, it's the same girl, changed her name,
5.
just did it 5 times.
Okay, okay.
But
You
is there a
see-
little smoke? There's fire.
You see, okay, I want to ask both of you. You see the same kind of thing. There's 5 really negative reviews, like she'll sleep with your husband, blah, 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 or he's going to pork your wife. You have 5 different comments on there from 5 different sources. Does that affect you going to that business?
100%. There's plenty of attorneys. I'm not gonna send my wife
Yeah.
to that guy.
For sure.
Isn't that
Why would I
crazy?
send my wife to that guy?
But do you see how
But at the
easy
same
it
time-
is, though, to fuck somebody over?
Totally. And
It is.
that's their face. That's the first thing you see. You type it in, you go down just like an inch on the Google, and you're like, oh, terrible review. I'm not going here.
If you're a person that has any kind of resource, getting 5 people from 5 different areas to blast you and to say
Crushing.
the word, that's not that hard to do.
Oh, it is devastating.
I think that there's certain things that I can discount. Like the guy's a dick, like he's got bad bedside manner, like I can discount all that. But if I have a wife and she's looking for an attorney,
But it's so
and I have like
specific.
3 attorneys that I'm like looking to send.
Okay, but that's why I'm asking. You totally don't do it, and that's scary.
It's scary to send your wife to a
Becky.
attorney that has that Yelp review.
No one's trying to pork your imaginary wife, Becky.
Way to rub it in.
I'm gonna stop using the term pork because that's kind of.
Yeah, that's got to go on the list with
It's not
last
vegan.
week's make love. We got to get rid of pork too.
I agree.
I think make love sounds nicer though.
So this was a weird email I got that I thought I'd say for us and not KVJ. Dear Weird and Whatever, I found a sex toy in my 15-year-old's daughter's room. I flipped out. Not to her, but to myself. She has no idea I found it. I did not think teenage girls masturbate. I thought this was more of a dude thing. I never masturbated when I was a teenager, and neither did any of my friends. Do you think I need to sit her down and talk to her? Should I let her know that I found out? Does this mean she's already having sex? I'm a single mother, and I just want to make sure my daughter's doing the right thing. I know this is weird, so that's why I'm emailing you weirdos. Sincerely, Karen. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Let's talk to you, Vicky.
Yeah, I knew he was coming here first.
Well, I don't want to go to a dude after a woman's asking me about a daughter.
A few things here. Number one, do not tell the daughter. She will be mortified.
I agree.
Just act like you don't know anything. Open up the lines of communications. Maybe you can kind of steer a conversation in that general direction. Another thing, no, just because they have a toy does not mean that they are having sex. In fact, if they were having sex, they probably wouldn't need the toy.
That's a
Okay?
good point.
So, and I remember some advice. My first job was a babysitter. I babysat Monday through Friday for someone who had a full-time job. And I remember her advice to me. I was 18 years old, and she said, you can't expect someone to learn how to please you if you don't know how to please yourself. And that was her advice.
I mean, I think it's pretty common for.
You're like, all right, cool. Now I'm gonna watch your kid. Have fun tonight.
I think it's pretty common for people to explore. I know Virginia's talked about how growing up she never was intimate with herself, but I think it's all your perspective. I mean, I've heard of other girls saying, yeah, I totally explored when I was a teenager.
Yeah, it's normal, but the most important thing, do not let the child know that you found it. That would be
Put it on Facebook.
devastating.
Oh my god! Oh my gosh! You won't believe what happened. Yeah,
That would be insane.
Beckett, any advice as a man?
I think I'm excited in our era that women are more forward with their sexuality. I feel
For
like
sure.
it's been
Bet
more.
you are, Beckett.
It's
He
a
likes
win.
a progressive chick.
Oh, boy.
It's a win. It's a
You're so-
win-win.
what an out there thought, Beckett.
It's a win-win. No, but like so many times, like women are so in our culture, and I think America's probably arguably the best, but so second what's the word? They're not. Men are so forward in their sexuality, and women are not. And I think that it's a good conversation to have, whether you're a 50-year-old male or someone that is 18 discovering your sexuality, to understand and appreciate that women have the same sexuality that men do. And I think it's good.
Would you say we're living in a time where it is more open, and we're at a point where women
Yeah.
are a little bit more? Vicky, your thoughts on that? Are we at a point where you feel like women are very open about their sexuality? They can feel liberal without being judged?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I feel like we're at a point now. Men get judged about their sexuality, about how many people they, and I think women do too. I think we're at a point now where,
Yeah, the stigma's changed.
I think I think they're pretty close to. I'm not saying it's 100%,
For
but
sure,
I think
but
it's
I think it's a lot more open for both genders now.
Yeah.
I think,
I mean,
I think
you-
people are just sexual now.
We've had conversations offline, and it's maybe not so PC, but I think sometimes the pendulum swings too far in each direction, and I think that maybe I'm going out on a limb and talking a little out of school, but I think that sometimes it is interesting to say, well, it's harder for a guy to sleep with a girl, and girls sometimes it's easier. So like in terms of like the sexuality, it's not always the same thing, if that makes sense. And I think that it's interesting to discuss the sexuality, and if we can end up on like an even plane with it and an honest conversation about it, that's like the best situation. Because I think sometimes I agree with you guys. Sometimes guys are maybe too forward out there, like they have more partners than normal, and it's I don't know. It's interesting.
Do you think that's true, Vicky?
That men have more partners?
Yeah. Do you think?
Well, they have to be partnering with somebody.
Well,
so doesn't that kind of even the numbers up?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
that's an interesting point.
That's what I'm asking. I mean, are we at a point where it's?
I would say you're looking at something where maybe we don't have correct statistics, because a man has no problem talking about how many people he's been with, whereas a woman may be a little more quiet about it, and therefore we don't even have correct numbers.
So I see what you're saying, and I think that is but I know for me, I would not be open about talking about how many people I slept with. I wouldn't brag about that. I would feel weird about that. And I know I can't be the only person having that thought. And that's why I ask these questions. You always hear, that's the narrative. Guys are just always bragging about porking all these chicks. Oh, I said porking again. Damn it. Why am I saying that word?
Maybe you're hungry.
But I have
Someone's thirsty.
That was the meat in that sandwich that you talked about earlier.
I'm very, very hungry, but I don't know if that is always the case. I've met plenty of dudes that aren't comfortable talking about all the people they've had sex with, and maybe have been promiscuous and have been ashamed on their own accord, their own words, saying, yeah, I don't want to be vocal about that, because I also too have a little bit of a shame factor on that.
But I mean, anytime we talk like this, we're talking about generalities. We're not talking about, you're always going to have the exception to the rule. And I read a book a long time ago, actually when I was a teenager, when I probably shouldn't have been reading this book. But there's a quote that stuck with me all these years, because a lot of times society, we're so stuck up on labels like homosexuality and heterosexuality. And this book said there's not homosexuality, there's not heterosexuality, there's just sexuality. And that's, I think if we just look at it that way, we stop putting labels on things.
Yeah.
And I think if people just...
Well, when you start putting labels on things, I at least from my perspective, when you start really labeling everything, that's when you really start to separate.
Well, for sure. Mm-hmm. I think just humans like labels in general. But you're right about the sexuality, because if you go back, there's same type of thing. I read it a long time ago, but there was in Roman society, and they were very chauvinistic back then. Men were considered superior to females, so they would only have sex with women for procreation purposes in order to bear children. But they would hang out with each other, and they all had sex. Men had sex with men all the time for pleasure. So it was a different thing. Having sex with men was for pleasure. Having sex with women was for reproduction. That was perfectly normal in their society.
You get to have just one night of just everything under the sun with either me or Beckett. Who do you pick? You better pick wise, because you go home to me, bitch.
I know. Bird's a workhorse. I know it.
But Beckett's got the body, he's got the hair.
I mean, I feel like I can enjoy it.
You got one night, Denny's.
I can indulge.
You got one night, and it won't be weird with me and you. I think we could still work on videos after.
Yeah, I hear you. Probably Beckett only.
I feel so rejected.
This shit just got weird and whatever.
I have never been hurt.
Well, it's so purely carnal, dog.
It's just out of curiosity.
You've seen my gross stomach and ass too many times.
I've seen you naked. I didn't see Beckett naked now.
No,
that's a little strange.
No, you've seen Beckett's stomach. You've seen mine.
I accidentally bumped my hand on Beckett's stomach once. That was like the hardest set of abs I ever hit my hand.
Was it the pool?
And the hardest your penis was.
Yeah. After I rubbed it on him.
Jeez.
All right, take it. Denny's, too far.
All right.
Come on, Denny's. You guys want to do a quick round of Would You Rather?
Let's do it.
I think we just did.
That wasn't it, yeah.
Shall we end this thing, or do you? We're at a minute. An hour 4. An hour 4.
You were thinking about sex again.
An hour 4. Let's do a quick round of Would You Rather.
All right.
Would you rather have horrible short-term memory or long-term memory?
Horrible short term or horrible long term?
Yeah, you can't remember the good old days when you were 9, Beckett, striking out bitches. Yeah. Playing baseball.
Yeah, you forget about those days.
I thought you were talking about hitting on women. I'll take short term. I'd rather not have short term memory.
Really?
100%.
Keep the memories.
So, okay.
Not to loop it back, but I rather like have those memories of my dog and
shit.
I know and important stuff. If I forget someone's name, which I do, when I just shake their hand, like 5 seconds after I meet them, that's fine.
Oh, so that means you wouldn't remember this podcast, though.
In the future, I would.
Is that true, Vicky?
Yeah, because you said he has
What's
long term,
in
so
his
eventually
long-term?
that memory's going to come back.
Damn it! Did I just get Becketed?
Yeah.
Ah, man, he found the
He
loop.
found the loophole.
Dennis, is that true? Did he find the
he
loophole?
just naturally seeks them out, man.
It's a bit annoying, but I'm gonna
He's
give
on,
you-
he's on fire this week with his random facts and finding the loophole.
Ooh.
Finally,
Yeah, little sassy. Look, I mean,
he's sitting a little bit taller in that seat right now.
That's right.
Heartbreak looks good
Sassy
on you,
and
Beckett.
classy.
He's Denny's.
Sassy.
He's Denny's bitch, and he got all this other stuff going on.
I love it. Denny's, your thoughts? Short term. Well, you have short term.
Well, yeah, I would say I constantly suffer from short-term memory loss, so it really wouldn't make any difference to my life. I would just
That's
lose
it. I
it.
feel like the short-term memory loss is self-inflicted, though.
Vicky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could do without short term.
Dude, to
Yeah,
myself.
all right, I think we're all gonna go with. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So what's the answer?
I'll answer it next podcast. Probably
Tune in.
keep the long term. Yeah, I agree with y'all.
Sure.
Okay, live without human touch for the rest of your life. You never touch another human, or
And another human never touches you.
yeah, Beckett. There's no loophole here. You are on your own. No touching you. No touching them.
You can't touch yourself?
Yeah, there's no intimate. Yeah, you can't do that.
Okay.
Or you can never see colors, taste food, or feel an orgasm ever again.
Well, you can't the other
How
way.
can you
How are you
orgasm?
going to if nobody's touching you?
No, you can. You have to pick one or the other.
I think I still rather touch.
Yeah, you'd have to have human contact.
But you can't taste anything. Oh, that's right. You don't like food. What am I talking about?
I'm vegan. I don't like food.
Am I the only person that likes food here? That's right. That's a stupid ass question.
Yeah, Vicky doesn't like pizza.
Damn. That's a dumb question.
No, I'd go without touch.
You go without
Yeah,
touch.
I'm famous for like not wanting people. I am known for not hugging people.
Okay, you got a hot piece of A, and you're Netflixing and chilling. He's
behind glass.
This guy knows the buttons to press of
No.
Vicky. Hold on, I'm not thinking. He's talking about the Lutz family. He's got all this underground facts. He's talking to ghosts and spirits, and you're confirming it.
He drops his wallet and tarot cards come out.
He's a hell of a dancer.
Oh, what a great.
Yeah, I mean,
He's got it all.
He's got it all. Okay, and he wants to snuggle with you. You're not into snuggling and cuddling?
No, I mean if I'm in a relationship, yeah, but I could live without human touch.
Okay,
I'm fine with that.
You guys watch a ghost special and he wants to cuddle. Are you annoyed with that? It's an hour special.
Well, you're making me make a choice whether to do without touch forever
No, I'm just saying
or
this is a-
food.
this
Oh
is a-
no. If I'm watching, if I'm allowed to touch, yeah, I'm gonna touch. But it's not. You asked me if I could live without touch.
Oh, no, we got your
or-
answer. No, I'm
or
not.
tasting food.
I figured I'm the only foodie here.
What about your daughter?
I'm a
Never
foodie.
hug again.
What is your favorite food?
I like sushi.
Really?
Yeah, it's so
Beckett,
good.
Beckett gets so many points, and he's like, yeah, sushi.
No, I like sushi.
I know you do.
Sushi doesn't have flavor.
You can never touch your daughter again.
She sat on top of me today and I couldn't breathe, so I'm fine with that.
Denny.
Damn. Oh, we got so in it, man. I forgot the question.
Short-term memory.
Oh, dude, it's terrible. I wish it was better.
Don't worry, it wasn't that good of a question.
I forgot what we were talking about.
All right, last question here. Would you rather pee every time you stand or poop every time you sit?
Oh, jeez.
That sucks, man. And no diapers. Everyone knows.
It's pee. It's definitely
Every
pee.
time you stand,
It's every time you stand.
do you lose lots of weight all the time?
Nope,
like if
you
you're
actually
sitting?
you actually retain.
It's the worst question ever.
Wheelchair.
Because after all these beers, I have to pee so bad.
We have 10 more minutes left in the podcast.
This thing just
Jay's
gotta-
gonna drag out the podcast just so.
So we just to give an update to everybody listening, we are, I would say, how many days away from our new studio, Denny's?
Probably in the early next month we'll be ready. More or
Early
less.
next month? Oh, okay.
It's almost the end of the month.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
we're almost in. Man, we have one more week until March.
You're right. My bad. I'm so sorry I yelled at you, Denny's.
So,
Okay, yeah, I'd say 10 days probably.
yeah, I'd say less than 2 weeks for sure.
Okay, very, very good. So we're going to be doing that stuff. We're also having Vicky come over finally to do a reading about my mom and to see what the hell is going on at my place. Beckett, anything to plug real quick?
Nope.
Denny's?
I'm just chilling, man.
Check out our Instagram. Go to Jason KVJ. Check it out on our YouTube page, KVJ, to check it out live here. And we love you all. And Bigfoot is real. Nice.
Real What's that sound? It's aliens and they're living in your town.